Oh, great. Thank you for that. Okay, going to start now. People are still coming in. Just give it a couple of seconds. Just having a cup of tea. Oh, everyone, this is Molly. She decided this time she wants to make an appearance. Okay. Normally when I do these things, she just sits under the chair and goes to sleep, but for some reason, she's very excited tonight. Anyway, probably because what we're going to talk about. Anyway, I might get started. Hang on. Okay, let's get started. Now, I wanted to clear up a few things. First of all, troop movements. I spoke about that last time, that you could expect troop movements. Well, it's all now being announced. The National Guard are actually being spread out across the USA. The reason why they're doing that, and they're going to be in more areas than some areas, and it all has to do with where the sealed indictments are. That's why I created that map, okay, showing you where the sealed indictments are. Some places like California have got 17,000 or something, and you've got other little places that have got 150. So, they're going to send more troops to California than to other places. And it's two-part. One is they're going to be guarding properties from rioters and looters because, during this period, there's going to be backlash. There just will be. So I'll give you some inside scoop about what's been going on in the White House. For about a week, last week, President Trump was having a massive debate with other white hats. And what the debate was over was whether or not to initiate martial law. Now, one faction wanted martial law. Trump was totally opposed to it, didn't want to know about it. He was like, no way, I'll lose the election if I bring in martial law. Plus, he's just opposed to it in general. So this went on for a week. Eventually, they came up with a compromise where they said, all right, we will have troops on the ground to quell any riots and that sort of thing, and we'll impose a self-regulated quarantine. And that's why they're pushing it at the moment. That's why they're saying to everyone, stock up for food for 2 days, 10 days or 2 weeks, and don't go to work. They're shutting down all the businesses. It's more and more and more now. Pictures in Chicago, LA are coming out where businesses are boarding up their shops because I think they know it's coming. So you think to yourself, well, why? Well, Trump is about to do what no one else has ever done, and that is he's going to bring down the cabal, essentially. That's the plan, right? Now, he can change. Trump's notorious for changing his mind at the last minute. So none of this is set in stone. All I'm telling you is what here, today, and now is the plan, okay? So the plan is, during this period of self-imposed quarantine, they're doing that for people's own safety, right? Because as soon as you start arresting all these crime bosses, shutting down their drug factories, their trafficking dens, you name it, all of it, as soon as you start doing that, people like George Soros, who rely on that money and that trade, to fund his operations, he's not going to be happy. So there's going to be backlash. There will be. So what we sort of expected would be like false flag events, right? Where they'll blow up a football stadium or a train station or something like that, or a mass shooting at a mall. Well, by having everyone home and not letting them go to football stadiums and, trying to get them off the trains and stuff, it's going to mitigate any sort of possible false flag event that may occur. I'm not saying they definitely will. We're just trying to plan for it. That's all, right? So there may be some sort of rebuttal. So that's why it's in your best interest to stay home. Just try and bunker down, stay quiet, and let it ride out. So just to give you an idea, Walmart recently just transferred almost 50% of their entire wealth which is a lot of money, right, to a trust account. And the reason why they did that is because nearly 2 years ago, Trump wrote a law, like a executive order, to not only arrest child traffickers or anyone involved with child trafficking, but to seize all their assets, right? Get all their money, essentially. But the thing is with a trust fund's run by a board. It's not owned by any one person. So it's a sneaky loophole way of them, protecting at least half their wealth. And you may say, well, what's Walmart? Why would they be doing it? Well, I've got personal testimony from very reliable people. I'm talking about contractors, security guards and staff that have witnessed tunnels under Walmart. One guy who's ex-army, military, and then went into security, he did the security during the construction phase of a particular Walmart, and he witnessed them doing tunnels and stuff like that. Right, so we know that Walmart is used probably, I think, more as a distribution centre for trafficking. Who knows what, right? But at any rate, it qualifies them to have all their assets taken. So that's why they've just transferred 50% of them. I reckon they'll try and get the other 50% transferred ASAP, but whatever. So that's that. Now, this other thing with the travel bans and all that sort of stuff, the Q people have come up with this thing saying, oh, it's all going to be over by the 10th of April. And they got that number from Q made a post saying 30 days, I think, and they calculated 30 days is going to be April 10. I don't know. All I know is what I've been told, and it was the 20th of April. Now, it could be that on the 10th of April, that's when people will walk out their door and, breathe in the fresh air of freedom. And maybe the 20th of April is when everything starts again, meaning people go back to work and, industry starts again, that sort of thing. I'm not sure. But anyway, just expect the unexpected. That's all I can say. When do I think this is going to start? Look, again, it's just a ballpark figure, but possibly the 29th of March to the 1st of April. That's not written in stone. I know that they're still getting people in place, things positioned into place. There's still there's a lot of videos coming out now of massive trains with all these tanks and military vehicles on them getting moved all over the place. So it looks like they're still putting everything into position. So maybe that date's early. I don't know, but that's what I was told anyway. Anytime between the 29th of March and the 1st of April, till the 20th of April. But, the Q people are saying 10, so I don't know. So that's basically it. Also, 10th of April is Good Friday as well, so that's interesting. Now, in my previous stream I did, I mentioned that I said all politicians are corrupt and they're all compromised. And I got a few comments saying, oh, but, Devin Nunes and Jim Jordan and those people aren't corrupt. No, I agree with that, but I don't see them as politicians, right? They're not career politicians. Trump is not a politician. They're patriots. So I see Devin Nunes and Jim Jordan, those sort of guys, I see them as patriots. They're doing that, they're Paul Revere, man. They're the real deal. So no, I'm not tarring them, and I didn't mean to tar them with the same brush. I'm talking about, the Mitt Romneys of the world and Feinstein and, all those clowns. They're all corrupt. Anyway, so just quickly, why is all this happening and what's going to happen to the economy after all this sort of stuff, right? I need to give you just a really brief history lesson. Please try not to switch off because it's really important to understand this. Anyway, so what I was saying is I really need your attention just for the next sort of 5 minutes or so and give you a quick rundown on how we got to this position, how we got to this debt slavery system that we're in, right? So basically it's a thing called feudalism existed in around, pre-12th century. For a long time there was a thing called feudalism. And that's where you had a rich landowner, usually a knight, and he rented out his land to peasant farmers or serfs. And they would have to give him like probably 95% of their crop to him as payment, and in return he would allegedly protect them from raiders and things like that. So that was feudalism, and that's how the world was going along for quite a long time. And the elites loved it. They loved it, right? Because they sat in their castle, did nothing, and they got all this free stuff from all the peasant farmers, and the peasant farmers made just enough just to survive, right? So that was the system, feudalism. So then we come to the 12th, 13th century, and we have a little thing called the Black Death, the plague. And the thing with the Black Death, hey, here's something interesting. Guess where the Black Death originated? China. Look it up. Yeah. Boy, what is it about China creating diseases? Anyway, the Black Death came along, and it didn't discriminate. It just killed everyone. It killed lords and ladies and peasants, everyone. Priests, you name it. I mean, there's one village, one area of Italy where something like 36 cardinals all died in a week, from the Black Death. So what happened with the Black Death? It levelled the playing ground, because all of a sudden you had crops still needed to come in, sheep needed to be sheared, but you didn't have the workers to do it anymore. Similar to what's happening in China at the moment. And a few of the elites that were still around, they started haggling with each other, because they'd say to a worker, hey, can you come and harvest my crop? I'll pay you $10. And the workers were getting smart. They were going, well, Lord Snotgrass up the road, he's going to give me $15. And then Lord Fartass here says, oh, I'll give you $20. And they started playing them off with each other. So suddenly the power was back into the hands of the worker. And this went on and went on. And so the workers became very wealthy because a lot of rich people died, right? And this is a true story, and I talk about it in my book. A lot of the stuff is straight out of this book of mine, right? If you want to know about it, it's on Amazon. It's a big one, but it tells you everything I'm talking about now. And so basically, true story just quickly, there was 2 sisters, their whole family of 8 died, parents, everyone. The lord that owned the land that they were renting died, his whole family died, and they were sheep farmers, right? They herded sheep. So they inherited all the sheep, the big house, you name it, everything, because everyone had died. And then they went around to their village and looked for all the other sheep farms where no one was looking after the sheep. So they took all the sheep in. They became the biggest sheep producers in the county, probably in England, and became incredibly wealthy. But they never forgot where they were from. Okay, they were working class and they never forgot that. So the first time in history, a new class of people was created, and that's what we call the middle class. So nearly everyone listening to this right now, you're in the middle class. This is where it started from. The Black Death created the middle class. It didn't just create the middle class, it created the Renaissance. So the Renaissance is that period where suddenly intelligence explodes, right? Mathematics, science, astrology, astronomy, you name it, it just went berserk in the Renaissance. Why? Because you had all these middle class people that had extra money for the first time in their life, and unlike rich people where they hang on to it and get really, they're misers, they spent their money on art, on culture. They would patronise people. So a good example of that, you've all heard of Leonardo da Vinci. So Leonardo da Vinci was a common farmhand, but he had a super duper intellect, and someone, a rich guy in Italy, recognised that. He had money to burn, so he said, come and live with me, I'll pay for your board and lodging, I'll give you some pocket money, but I want you to, make stuff for me and do stuff for me. And that's how Leonardo got famous, because then once he did that, more and more richer people said, hey, come and work for me. Eventually he went and worked for the king, and he spent all day designing military stuff, but at night he would work on, more humanitarian sort of things. So you had to pay the bills, right? So we had this middle class come along, and then everything was cruising along where the people were doing okay until, did it just do it again? Okay, until communism. That's why communism was invented, okay? So the thing with communism, it was funded by Wall Street. You can look this up. They did. They put about $1 million in it. In them days, that's probably worth a billion in today's money. And so this is like 19th century, beginning of the 19th century. So this was the elite's attempt to bring back feudalism, right? They wanted to bring back feudalism because, it's the good old days. So that's what communism is. Communism is essentially neo-feudalism. It's just a new form of feudalism, because when you look at every version of communism, you have a very rich elite at the top, and the rest of the people are all peasant farmers, and there's no middle class whatsoever. And you can see that every single example of communism, and the euphemism for communism, which is socialism, that's just a euphemism, right? And that was the whole purpose why they brought communism in, and why Wall Street funded it. But I won't get too far into that. Now, basically, I needed to tell you all that because the other thing that happened in the capitalist countries is the same factions that created communism then created the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. And essentially what that was is they created a central bank in America. This was their third attempt, by the way. And Andrew Jackson was famous. He was a president who was famous for breaking the central bank, getting rid of the central bank that was around in his time. That's why Trump keeps a picture of Andrew Jackson in his Oval Office, because he admires Andrew Jackson for getting rid of the Federal Reserve, right? So essentially, bankers, Zionist bankers, bought off politicians like Woodrow Wilson and Aldrich, and they created the secret Federal Reserve Act, which handed over America's wealth, all its banking, everything, to a private company. The Federal Reserve is a private company. It is not federal. It is not a government body. And that goes for every Federal Reserve in the world. So here in Australia, we have the Fed, right? It's a private company run by private bankers, and the top of the private bankers is the Rothschilds. People talk about the Rockefellers. Rockefellers were part of the Rothschild family through a female bloodline of the Rothschilds, right? So they're all connected, they're all together, and at the top of the heap is the Rothschilds. So the reason why I'm bringing that up, because last live stream I did, I mentioned how in the news 31,000 US troops had landed in Europe. And at the time, I couldn't tell you everything, and I just said, well, they haven't got masks on, so they're not there for the coronavirus. Now I can tell you why they're there. The reason why they're there is because the Rothschilds, who own Switzerland, Switzerland is a banker's country. The bankers own Switzerland. That's their home, right? That's where they come from. That's why in World War II and World War I, it was always neutral. No one was allowed to bomb it, and they all had their money there, right? Swiss bank accounts and things like that. But Switzerland, as a country, is not that old. It's only a couple of hundred years old. It was invented and formed and developed by the Rothschilds banking cartel, basically. So the Rothschilds retreated to Switzerland because they know it's coming. And they have got a private army of around 24,000 crack troops. These are mercenaries. They're armed with the most latest technology, the best armour, you name it, they've got it. Stuff that you don't even know about, right? Space age stuff. This is what they arm their army with. And don't forget, the Rothschilds are worth $515 trillion. Trillion. A trillion is a million, okay? A billion is 1,000 million. It's a lot of money. Right. So that's what, like last week, and I said, they own the world. They do. They own everything, right? And this is what Trump's taking on. It's unbelievable. So they've got 24,000 crack troops defending, the redoubt of the Rothschilds. So Trump has sent in 31,000 troops as not to intimidate them, but just to say, hey, we'll match you. We don't want this. And so he's got his people over there right now as we speak. They've been there since the 19th of February. And they're basically there to twist the arm of the Rothschilds Just stand down. They don't want to fight. They don't want this to blow up into a big to-do. So, but they're basically saying the jig is up. You lose. You've had a fair go. It's time to step down and just go and live on an island or something, right? That's what Trump wants to do to them. Other people want to drag him out by the hair and hang him from the nearest light post, but Trump doesn't want that. He just said, no, let them go and live somewhere. As long as they keep their nose out of our business, I don't care. So that's why the troops are there. So they're trying to negotiate a deal with the Rothschilds to hand over the central banks of the world, because they own all of them. They really do. Another interesting tidbit you can look up is carbon tax. Every time they want to bring in a carbon tax, look where the money goes to. Who do you send the carbon tax money to? A Rothschild bank. That's where it goes to, right? So the whole carbon stuff is a Rothschild invention, but I won't get sidetracked with that. So what's coming is a new economy. Trump wants to create a new economy. So they stopped printing, again back in February, Federal Reserve notes. There's no more Federal Reserve notes. So on the American money, it says Federal Reserve, which is a private company. They've stopped that now, and they changed the plates, which is interesting because the cover story that was published on the internet, which you can look up, was saying that one of the machines broke down. And you think, oh, give me a break. These machines don't break down. They certainly don't make the news, but it wasn't broken down. It was put offline so they could change the printing plates, right? So the new money won't have Federal Reserve on there. It'll have something like, Product of America, or I don't know. It'll have something different, and different numbers, different serial numbers. Now, 2 other times this was attempted in the past. One was Abraham Lincoln. He printed his own greenbacks, they were called. And then Kennedy was the next guy that printed non-Federal Reserve money. Both of them, as you're probably aware, got whacked. That's why. You take on the bankers, you're asking for trouble. That's why it's taken Trump 3 years to get everything into place to do this, and why they're taking so many precautions, and why they're doing everything, got all their ducks lined up basically, because this is a massive task, and Trump wants to survive it, obviously, and we want him to survive it for the next election. Now, so what's supposed to happen, and again, this is not set in concrete, it's not set in stone, it's what I've been told, and this is what's supposed to happen right here and now. So after all this shutdown and days of darkness, whatever, a new economy will be created, and the new economy will be a goal-based economy, goal-backed economy. See, because the globalists back in the 70s, earlier than that, they changed to a petrochemical dollar, right? So they got rid of the gold standard, and they pegged the American dollar against the oil, essentially. Well, oil's taken a big dive at the moment, except in Australia, our costs are through the roof as usual, but in America they're paying as low as 99 cents a gallon in places, right? That's incredible. So oil, which was, the main thing for the last 50 years, it's on its deathbed. Why do I say that? Because the other thing that Trump, I know I'm getting sidetracked, but stay with me. Trump also, and he said this is in his inaugural speech, and he's doing it, he's going to release around 6,000 patents that have been repressed, for national security. So it's things like free energy devices, sonic healing devices, anti-gravity devices, all this stuff that's been sitting in patent offices under national security to keep it from us. Trump said he's going to release all that. And I think this is just my opinion, my thought, right? So it might be wrong, but I think that's why the petrodollar is tanking at the moment, because they know this technology is going to come out in the next 6 months, and it's going to obsolete oil. We won't need it anymore. We really won't, except maybe to make Vaseline or something. I don't know. But yeah, so that's where all that's going. That's the reason why. Also, the Saudi family, they've arrested half of them for this adrenochrome paedophile cult thing. So that's that. Oh, and so getting back to, so he wants to go off the petrodollar and bring back the gold standard. So unfortunately for people with shares, they're sort of having to let the shares collapse and fall under this banker system. And the reason for that is because it drives the price of gold up and silver and other precious metals. They go through the roof, which gives them a better resource to back the American dollar against, right? So if the cost of gold goes up to what some people are saying $5,000 an ounce, oh, the American economy is just going to explode, right? That's incredible. It's amazing, but we'll see what happens. But that's what's going on there. So if you've got shares, get rid of them right now. I'm serious, and buy gold or silver or other sort of semi-precious metals, because shares under the current Rothschild banking cartel, that's their system, right? It's going to collapse. It's going to collapse. And your actual dollars in the bank, you're not going to lose them, because what Trump has already said is you're going to do a one-for-one exchange. So if you've got $50 of fiat currency, like monopoly money, in your bank, they will buy it off you for $50 of the gold-backed real money, right? Essentially, that's what they're going to do. So you're not going to lose any money. Other things with the businesses and stuff that have been shut down, right, during this period, and they all think they're going to go bankrupt and stuff like that. Trump already has said he's going to bail them out. Now, here's the other thing, why he's in Switzerland with the Rothschilds. He is hitting them up for $1 trillion. That's trillion with a T, yeah, because he figures that during the banking collapse of 2007, Obama and Bush and his buddies gave the banksters essentially $2 trillion. That's what they ended up printing off and giving to the banksters. So Trump basically said, well, if you can give $2 trillion to the banksters, I want to give $2 trillion to the people. I want to give the money back to the people, you know whats. So he's going to Congress for $1 trillion, and he's going to the Rothschilds for the other trillion. Because as far as he's concerned, both of them were, complicit in that. So that's essentially what's happening. And what's he going to use that money for? Well, all those companies and businesses that had to close during this period that, would normally go bankrupt, he's going to give them the money back that they would have earned in that period. That goes for any employment, any small business. And he said this. He said all this in his press briefs, but you're not going to hear this on the mainstream media, right? They don't talk about it. Watch Fox News. You can go to YouTube and watch Fox News, subscribe to it. They show all of Trump's presses, all his speeches, rallies, you name it. They show them all, right? Unedited. So that's where I look. And I sit there and listen to the whole thing so you don't have to, So you can either trust me or go and look for it yourself. But he said all this. He said, especially small business, he said, I'm going to look after you, I'm going to give you the money back, we're going to blah, 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 blah. And as you know, he's also, oh, good, okay. Oh, I'm going to go to the wire ones in a second, because these things are just slipping out. It's annoying. It's hard for me to concentrate. What was I saying? Right, so he's going to bring in a flat 17% tax. So no IRS. A lot of people don't realise that the IRS was an invention. It was part of the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. They needed to create the Federal Reserve to create income tax to pay back the bankers with this goddamn fractional reserve lending. That's what it is, fractional reserve lending. That's what they invented. If you don't know what fractional reserve lending is, I talk about it in the book, but I'll explain it now. Essentially, if you've got $10, I just create it out of thin air, right? I write it in a book or I type it onto a screen, $10. Then I'm allowed to, under fractional reserve lending, I'm allowed to loan out 9 of those dollars to 9 different people, charge them interest, right? And just keep 1 in reserve. That's where the reserve, fractional reserve banking. The reserve changes from different banks. So I'm just giving a basic example. So essentially, if you've got $10, I can lend out 9 of those dollars to 9 other individuals who get $1 each, and they've all got to pay me back interest out of their blood, sweat and tears. So when you go to work and you come home exhausted and you pay back your mortgage to your bank, The bank didn't have anything to back up that mortgage. They didn't have collateral. They don't have gold. They've got nothing. They just type it into a screen and then you go and work your bum off to pay them free money. They get free money. So I'm talking $10, but what about when they do these billion-dollar contracts? They do the same thing. It's the same principle. $1 billion gets split up into 9 other, fractions, and they get interest on all of them. So you think of all the people, all the businesses, all the house loans, the car loans, all the loans, everything. This is why the bankers got so ridiculously wealthy. You'll wonder why, the Rothschilds have got $515 trillion. That's what they're worth. They've been doing this since the 1850s, more or less, right? 1840s. But it wasn't until 1913 when they brought in the fractional reserve lending. That's when they went berserk. Right? And then they put that in every central bank around the world. Works on fractional reserve lending. Banks do not own any money. They don't have vaults, with gold in it or stuff like that. It's all done on the computer screen now. It's all pulled out of thin air. It literally is. As I said, I wrote a book. I got a whole chapter in this big fat book about that. If you don't want to believe what I'm saying now, look it up on the internet, buy the book, whatever. I don't care. Research it. They invent money out of thin air. They literally create money out of thin air. And this is what Trump is trying to bring down. This is what he's trying to destroy. So the IRS is a arm of the Federal Reserve, so they don't need that anymore. You get rid of the Fed, you don't need the IRS anymore, right? So that's going. So all they're going to have is a flat 17% tax to pay for roads and infrastructure. You do need to pay some tax. You do, right? If you want to live in a society. So that's what. But this is going to be a flat tax. And so in Australia, I'm not sure if the rest of the world, I would say works the same because we're all under the Rothschild system. But here we pay a GST, which is a tax on certain products, but not all products, just certain products. We pay a fuel tax as well as GST on the fuel, so they get 3 bites of the cherry with fuel. So we got sales tax on houses, and selling a house, buying a house. They got all these other taxes, plus they got the GST, and in England they've got the VAT, which I think works the same. It's just a joke, right? So people don't realise you're probably paying 50-60% of your wages go in some form or another to taxation or illegal banking systems. I just want to add too, everyone goes on about, the Jews run all the banks. Well, they do because the Christians let them, right? Because in the Bible it says it's called usury. Usury to Christians is illegal, like it's against God's laws, right? You can't do it. Lending money like that for profit. So they went to the Jews and they said, well, you're not restricted by the Bible. You can lend money, but you give us a cut. And they went, sure, that's a good deal. We'll do that, right? So that's why the Jews say there's 5 families that own the Federal Reserve and it's forever. So when one dies, another person in that family just inherits their spot on the board, and that's what they do. So don't get on the Jew bashing, banker bandwagon. They're there because the WASPs, and the WASPs stands for White Anglo-Saxon Protestants, right? They let them do it. Anyway, they're all bad. They're all bad, all of them. So we'll have a 17% flat tax. Now, what I'm talking about at the moment, by the way, is just for the US. Trump has basically said, even though this is a global system, he's going to tear it down globally, it's still up to other countries how they want to go forward. He's not a dictator. So Australia typically always follows what America does, but it takes us like 6 weeks or 6 months before we'll do it because our politicians are just pathetic. Other countries are more proactive. So I don't know. So I'm just talking about the US at the moment. And where the US goes, the rest follow, really. Except the commie countries, of course. So the new economy will reward hard work and talent, unlike the system now. It's going to change everything. It'll change the whole political system. Once these arrests go down, half the Democrat Party will be gone. So I don't even know if they'll survive. They'll have to form a new party, I think, called something else. But socialism, communism will never be looked at again, I would imagine, at least for 100 years, and then people forget, and they'll probably try and bring it in again. But for the foreseeable future, that'll all go away. So really what the powers that be in Trump land are asking for people is to not panic, to not get stressed out and upset. Stay in your homes, right? Watch TV or play Scrabble or something, and just let them do their job. That's all they're asking you to do. Just let them do their job, right? I honestly think with the activating the National Guard, we're not going to see, roving bands of people, going house to house looking for food and things like that. That won't happen. National Guard will sort that out. Police force are also going to be on hand as well. They're keyed up on all this. They know what's going on. Right? So this is potentially, to me, the most exciting time you could ever be on this planet ever. We could possibly be looking at the end of a system that has enslaved us for forever, right? Really forever. I was going to say the last 300 years, but it's really ever since feudalism, right? Feudalism was the start of it, and they're just trying to create that again. And don't be surprised, and don't be, surprised. The Democrats have aligned themselves now with that socialist, communist, feudalism thing. That's what they want, right? So just be aware of that. And that's why, and it's not all Democrats, I'm not saying all Democrats, I'm talking about their leaders and their elites, right? The average Democrat person in the street isn't like that. They're not a bad person. They still believe it's the Democrat Party of JFK, and it's not, right? It wasn't that for a long time. And so it's just these old, career politicians and things like that. They'll say and do anything to stay in power. They're Fabians, is what they are. Fabian society. That's another whole thing. Do you have an idea about the Fabians? But you've all heard of George Orwell. Eric Blair. I was going to say Eric Blair, that's his real name, but George Orwell, he wrote the book 1984, and he wrote the book Animal Farm. Where he got the info to write 1984 was from, in England, the Fabian Society. It was like a club. And he would go and sit in there with his notebook and pen and listen to all the old men talking about their plans and what they were doing. And essentially, that's what 1984 is. 1984 is the Fabian plan for your future. So you want to let these losers in. That's what you're facing. Which brings me to another thing I want to address. I get a lot of comments on different social media and things like that because I'm supporting Trump. And then they find out I'm Australian, living in Australia. They go, oh, what do you even care about Trump? It's not even your country and everything. Well, I'm here to tell you it's my fight as anyone's fight, right? Because we are fighting for the freedom of the world. I know that sounds dramatic, but that's literally what this is. This is a fight against the dark forces, against the forces of light. That's essentially what it is. This plan was not just thought up when Trump got into office. This plan came about after 9/11, where patriots, right, realised that their country had been overtaken by criminals. Bush was a criminal, right? Obama was a criminal. Clinton was a criminal. They're all criminals. And it's when they realised that, a small group of patriots decided to do something about it. And it took them a while, but they eventually got someone that they could put their faith in to lead this revolution, and that was Donald Trump. So, in World War II, all the Allies, all of them, there was a lot of them, got behind and rallied behind Eisenhower, right, for D-Day. So believe it or not, people in America, you didn't conquer Europe on your own. And in fact, without Russia, you wouldn't have won the war. Russia really won the war. But, on that D-Day beaches, there was a lot of other countries there besides Americans, right? Americans are famous because they went to Omaha, where they... this thing again. Sorry about that. I think I'm at a bit of an angle. Hopefully you can hear me better anyway now. Good. Okay, so where was I up to? I forgot. I lost my train of thought. I think I was getting to the end anyway. I don't like making these things go too long because people lose interest and stuff. Trust me, there's a lot more to talk about. All I want you to know is it's all going to plan, right? Oh, you would have seen, you know, all the CEOs that are basically resigning and stuff. Bill Gates has resigned, you know, and the other guy has resigned, and they're all resigning. And Oprah Winfrey, I was part of that. That was a right winger, I guess you'd call it. I don't think we're right wing. I think we're centralist. But it was a deliberate attempt to rattle her, and to raise awareness that Oprah Winfrey is involved in child trafficking, pimping, and God knows what else she is, right? But if you come out and just tell everyone that, they're going to go, no way, Oprah gives away cars. You know, Oprah's fantastic. She's just wonderful. So that's what that little meme thing was around, you know, saying that her property, it was her property, but she'd sold it and had tunnels under it and all that sort of stuff, which forced her out into the open onto Twitter. And she said, oh, I wasn't arrested, you know, I'm here, I'm free. This was some, you know, right-wingers crap. No, she fell straight into the trap, right? That's what we wanted her to do, because now she was trending on Twitter. She's trending on Twitter as a pedophile, adrenochrome trafficker. That's what we wanted, right? So it woke a lot of people up. So that was what that was all about. That was a psyop, what we call a psyop. So basically that's it. I know you've been putting questions or comments in, and I haven't been paying attention to them this time because I didn't want to get distracted because I had to cover some pretty heavy stuff. Turn your shirt around. It's all black and we can read the message. What the message says is, think it's not illegal yet. Think it is not illegal yet. Okay, that's what the shirt says. And under, you know, the leftist world, it probably would be illegal. I wouldn't be doing this, I can tell that much. I wouldn't be allowed to. Anyway, so yes, Trump is very relaxed because he knows this is all part of the plan. By the way, the COVID-19 thing was accidentally released by the Chinese. They all thought that they were going to be able to collapse the economy and make Trump look bad. And Trump's people really well responded to it and thought, hang on, this could be just the event we've been waiting for. So it wasn't done by Trump. COVID-19 wasn't done by the White Hats. But what they did is they turned defense into attack, is what they've done. And they're very good at that. And that's what they did. So they've turned it all around now to use COVID-19 as a cover to do these arrests and bring about a new economy and everything like that. So, yep. And I think that's why Trump's relaxed, because he knows what the plan is. He knows what's going down. He knows he's going to win. Okay? If this all goes down, then he's assured a landslide. I wouldn't be surprised if he won 98% of the states. He won't ever win New York or California, but yeah, whatever. But he'll win all the rest of them. He'll win by a landslide. And that's what I was saying. Why I support Trump? Because it's a global war, right? It's not just America. Australia is so tied to America. If America collapses, Australia collapses, and most other countries around the world will collapse. It's as simple as that. So it's in my best interest to fight the right fight, to be on the right side of history, which I believe I am. So that's why I get involved, because I think this is important. I don't have grandchildren, but when I do, I want them to inherit a world better than the one I lived in, that's for certain. So if I can bring down this debt slavery system, bring down these pedophiles, and these sex traffickers, my God, I'm going to throw everything I've got into it. And that's why I do it, right? That's why I do it. Because it's a world thing. It's not just America. And to give you an idea too, the globalists don't have borders. They don't have nationalism. Did you know, okay, China, the most restricted country in the world for capitalism, did you know that they've got McDonald's? Not only do they have McDonald's, they've got 2,700 McDonald's outlets in China, right? 2,700 McDonald's. And this is a country that's so, oh, we're commies and we don't believe in capitalism. They're globalists, right? They're globalists. Globalists are everywhere. They don't have borders. So if they don't have borders, we don't have borders. It's as simple as that, right? It's a global fight, and that's why I'm in it. I hope other people will start to join it. Last 3 or 4 Trump rallies, they do the demographics of who goes to the rally. On average, 20% of the audience has been Democrats because they're so disillusioned with their own leaders that they think, oh, I'll go along to this Trump rally thing and see for myself, right? And this is why this walk-away movement has just gone gangbusters, right? Democrats are leaving the party. They'll never leave the party, but they're going to vote for Trump. That's what they'll do. And that's, people say, am I Republican? I'm not a Republican. I don't even live in America. I'm not a Republican. I'm a Trumpian. Trump doesn't represent the Republicans, in my opinion, like the GOP. They're just as corrupt as the Democrats, don't get me wrong. But some of them saw the light and jumped on the Trump train. So really, I've always said Trump really, at the end of his presidency, should, 6 months out from the end, he should form a new political party in America, called America First or something like that. Because he's not really a Republican. He's not GOP by any chance. He's not a Democrat. I think he should start his own movement, and then that way the movement doesn't die, right? Because people will flock to that new America First party and put candidates up that are Trumpian or Trump-esque, in their vision for prosperity and peace and things like that. Yes. So anyway, that's where I am. Anyone got any final really pressing questions? If not, I'll try and answer you after I finish this. I'll go onto my page and type out. Mightn't be tonight, but tomorrow. Right. Well, if no one's got any more questions, I'm going to finish it there. Thank you very much for listening in, and be sure to share this around if you got anything out of it that you think's worth spreading. And just remember, this is not a scary time. This is, for me personally, what I've been waiting for since I was a teenager, literally. I knew about this Rothschild banking system way back then. I knew it was a scam, right? So I've been waiting for it since then. That was a long time ago. Okay. So this is a really, really exciting time to be on the planet right now. Anyway, so with that, all the best, and I'll try and keep you updated about what's happening. So see you for now. Bye bye.